young man. Even though we were relatively humble, they're still in, I'm going to Japan, I'm really good at what I do. I might even show these guys what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And there might be a compliment somewhere that make me feel even better. Yeah. But the truth of it is, I was fit, fast, strong, from a visual perspective in great shape, and a little Japanese old man, smaller than I, throw the punch, and he said it in Japanese, when I tell you to throw a punch, you throw a punch, it's not up to you to stop, it's up to me to get out of the way. So I threw the second punch and I was convinced I hit him. My next conscious thought, I was travelling along the floor, about the height of the arms of the chair, more or less horizontal. Now usually you would engage a roll to roll out of that. I couldn't roll because he had organised me in such a way that I was going to fall flat. But as I was falling, he just brushed off the Achilles tendon at the back of my heel, which made my body feel like I had elongated a couple of inches, and I fell down to the floor flat and was completely winded. Now, at that stage, our training was so involved in conditioning orientated work as well as functional work that we could take WAVN pipes essentially filled with sand, wrapped in a PVC, and you'd be slapped with these things while you were hanging upside down from an inversion bar. Like, it sounds ridiculous, but this was this school of thought for conditioning. I was winded, foreign feeling at this stage of my life. He came up, took me by the little finger, put his fingernail under mine, bent the finger, which bent the wrist, which bent the elbow, kneeled on my rib cage, and as I exhaled, he would bend it a little bit more, and kneel in a little bit more, and was slowly strangling me. Now, I'll cut back to my observations of this the day before. I'm looking at this guy thinking, people are just cooperating here in Japan, even with the Grandmaster, even with the Shihans, and I'm thinking, this is not good. I came all this way, it was very expensive. What am I doing here looking at this? Pony and trap show, this is not it. Yeah, I realised while lying on the floor, having my finger bent and the knee into my ribs, that actually nobody was cooperating. They didn't have any choice. This man understood timing and distance, and the space that I needed to be in to be fit, fast and strong, and the space he needed to be in to mean that from his perspective it didn't matter, because he took everything that I had away and kept all of his. And that's when I learned that's a master, and I'm very much a student, no matter how good I thought I was. And at that stage I was considered to be somewhat of an expert in other people's perspectives, but that was the turnaround, and that was the beginning of a new series of learning, one that made me realise you're learning for life, kiddo. And that was a lovely, humbling experience.
Well, that's dramatic. I mean, you that's the stuff that you see in martial art movies. That's the stuff that you see in those sorts of scenarios where the young guy, he knows his shit, he's coming over, and no matter how grounded, whatever, he still thinks, I'm going to take on. Straight out of the movie, But obviously it struck a chord, and remains to strike a chord, that he didn't use force.
No, he didn't need to.
And
that is an interesting thing. This is a very capable man that's capable of eliciting a huge amount of devastating damage on a person's body. But of course, given his understanding of the things that I told you about, he doesn't have to. You fall over on yourself. He's taking away your capacity to remain upright by taking away your perception of where you are in space and time, by being somewhere different than you think he is. So you overextend, he just helps you overextend a little bit further, and for all intent and purposes, you fall over. Now, whether you fall over onto his knee or whether he accelerates that fall is entirely his choice. And that's just two things of the myriad of things that he could do.
And do you think that it's that he thinks you're predictable and can spot it, that he can move so fast, or take the magic out of it in a way for me and break it down? How can somebody do something like that to you?
So, for instance, if we liken this, a child is unpredictable, but when they run at you, and I'll use mess fighting because we're talking martial art, there's no threat there, because your physical prowess over that child is of such that you can grab the arm even though you don't know which arm's going to get thrown, because you've got that much understanding of your own timing and distance, because you're in a 40-year-old body or a 50-year-old body, that you can see the shoulder coming up to throw around. So you will just engage that and grab it, and you'll tickle them and you'll turn them, and you've got control over their inexperienced body. So independent of how experienced I thought I was, comparative to his studies I was inexperienced.
Okay.
So what you had was a pair of experienced eyes that, although I was operating in an unpredictable way, he had enough time, because of his understanding of where he needed to be, to read what I was doing.
Yeah, okay.
So that's what he was doing. So let's go back to music in that regard. You know, with the improvisation of jazz, if you've got a couple of guys coming together for the first time, well, everybody just adds their bit in with an understanding as to what the general idea is going to be, but they put their bit in their own way because they can read the music. He read me.
Yeah. Okay.
Does that help you understand that?
Yeah, no, it totally does. I mean, it breaks it down. It takes the kind of...
There's no magic. There never is.
Yeah.
There's only perception of what these guys are doing. Plenty of people want to mystify them. They don't deserve to be mystified. They deserve to be respected for the time and the commitment that they put in to get to that level.
Yeah. You see the likes of... I mean, I see videos online of these guys who... Like you're describing when you saw him in action the day before.
Yeah.
There you're looking at these martial arts and the guy is just kind of going...
Okay.
Or whatever. And they, to me, where there's no contact even, it looks like he's using some sort of chi or force to push the person away, and it, to me...
That's bullshit though.
Yeah, that is bullshit.
Yeah. So, like, I mean, there's no doubt about it that we all have some type of electric magnetic resonance that emanates from our body that can be measured in some way.
Yeah.
But you ain't going to throw somebody across a room with it. You know? And there's plenty of examples of these guys on the internet who have made these claims, whose students will jump away from them, akin to what you see at the evangelist ceremonies, you know, where people are speaking in tongues and wobbling on the floor because somebody has exorcised the demons from their head. So this situation is played out in any number of environments, including martial arts.
Yeah.
Now take the martial art minister and put him in against somebody that might be a cage fighter, and every time martial art minister goes home with his backside in a sling.
Yeah.
You know, it's not it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, that's very good, yeah. What I was going to say to you was, so obviously within the both the, let's say, the play of it, but also obviously in your work, then you, I'm going to use the only way I can talk about what you, Matsu, but you, basically, there is a way for the body to be held. This is having gone to a few of your, obviously, a few of your sessions, and you've worked on me. But so what I've understood is that there is a way for the body to naturally be held or hold itself.
Yeah.
And the body then, over long periods of time, learns, whether it's sitting at a school desk, sitting at an office, on a computer, reading a book, reading a paper, whatever the fuck, it has learned a way that doesn't necessarily suit its natural state. And so then muscles have to compensate, everything has to compensate for the body to work normally. And then what happens is over prolonged
for the body to work, not normally.
For the body to work,
yeah.
And let's see, is there a question at the end of this spiel? Hopefully there is. But basically, back pain and neck pain and shoulder pain and all of those are results of some sort of, it's not, positioning or whatever that has happened over a prolonged period of time. And you've kind of described pain as is the last resort for the body compensating for all these bad positions. I'm not going to get you to correct my language necessarily, but obviously that's, this study of the body and this discussion, this amatsu is holistically different than, again, we'll say physiotherapy or whatever the fuck in terms of fixing prolonged problems of the body. So obviously back pain, people suffer from it. It's a fucking thing. We live in a world where back pain is I don't know, was it always the case? But it definitely is a serious thing for people to have to deal with on a daily basis.
Okay.
So what is the question is, in your studies and your work, what do you see as the cause of body pain? What's the main cause of body pain?
So
is that the question?
Yeah, and it's not too difficult to answer this. Anthropologically, we have evolved to function in a particular way. You have a series of joints all the way through your body, and soft tissue hanging over that predictably moves the bone structure through a series of movements that's specific to the angles and positions that the joints are anthropologically designed to be. And that's based upon evolution. Now, cut a long story short, the neutral position that you're supposed to be in, this homeostatic position, which is where you are in poise or in perfect balance, is essentially where you are standing with the minimum engagement of muscle tissues. Now, of course, this is going to be a reductive answer, and there's tangents that I can go off in each one for much, much longer, but to keep it encapsulated, if a person is simply standing with poor poise because they've now ended up outside of their anthropological developed position, in other words, they're no longer running around the field throwing a spear at a rabbit or something more significant with both hands with efficiency. They're no longer climbing trees with all limbs with efficiency, and no longer foraging where they're bending down and picking stuff up and moving around in a natural way. Now they're stuck behind the desk for very prolonged periods of time, from the time that they're 4 years of age, and in a lot of people's cases all the way through their life. And if they're not behind a desk, they're possibly behind a steering wheel or some other compromise to this shape that's designed to move. Your body is designed for perpetual motion, and even when you're stopped, you're still in motion. Okay? Now, if the position that you're in for motion is uneconomic, then you've got a ratio issue. And the ratio issue is that your rate of healing, which is proportionate to how you have looked after your health, proportionate to your age, certain environmental factors, but your proportionate of regeneration is supposed to supersede the rate that you degenerate. If it doesn't, you've got pain that you can't get rid of.
Okay.
Now, the problem you've got is that for most people, the degenerative ratio is elevated by being harboured in a particular position for prolonged periods of time that your body reads as a fall. This is the easy way to describe this. And if you're falling over, something has got to grip you and hold you and stop you from falling. So in our case, we don't have guy ropes, we've got muscle tissues. And the body neurologically will engage the muscle tissues and the fascial continuum that runs through the body. We won't get any more technical than that. But what I want to say is that all of the body, all of the time, is aware of what every other part of the body is doing. So if your shoulders are forward, all of your body will make a compensation to try to lessen the effect of your shoulders being forward on the rest of your body. After a while, that gets too tiring. You will look for another way of doing another adaptation. And you will keep looking for adaptations to allow you to continue this sustained challenge position.
Okay.
Till eventually you run out of options. Now you've got pain and nowhere to go. You would have had elements of pain all the way, but when you run out of options, it's just pain, and you can't seem to get better, because right there, the slider for regeneration has dropped below degeneration, and you're sustaining dysfunction.
Right.
Now what I do is come along and help reverse that. That's the crux of it.
Okay. Yeah. It's very well put.
Good.
Yeah. Well, you see, it's fucking this mechanism, this bones and skin and everything like that is beyond complex.
Oh, it's beyond complex, but beautifully simple. And as paradox as my statement is, the complexity comes when you look at things in isolation, and you can explore any part of the body to infinitum. But when you do that, and I've done a lot of study in the body, you then have to realise, something I said a minute ago, that every single part of that body is completely aware of what every other single part of that body is doing at all times. So no matter how specialist you become, you have to be aware that if you're going to address something in the body, you have to address the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah.
Because a condition, an ailment or disease will leave signatures in the rest of the system. So if you only address the symptom, let's say, well then the signatures that are there can make it easier for a person to drift back into the pathology and behaviour that caused them to visit you in the first place for help.
Okay. So tell me about this, or would you, to what extent does stress, not physical stress, but actual mental stress?
Okay.
So what's your sense of what that does to the fucking...
Because they're going to cross over, what we'll do is we'll call psychological stress, and we'll call physiological stress distress.
Okay.
So what you've got is a situation whereby the body will always reflect how the mind is feeling, and the pretty much the mind will also have a reflection of what the body is feeling. Now, what I'm talking about there is, to put it another way, psychology always has physiology, and physiology always has psychology. Now, let's give some examples.
Does the body rule the mind, or does the mind rule the body?
I don't separate them.
Yeah, okay. No, it's just go on here.
Yeah, but it is a question people asked. And the thing about it is that as you study each one in isolation, you could suggest that one but when you study both, you realise that they're part of the same continuum. Now, the thing about it is that we've a situation, and again, let's be reductive for simplicity. If essentially you see a person and how do you think they're feeling? Probably not brilliant, because this is the physiology that tends to be associated with feeling down, dour, depressed, maybe even anxious with a slight change.
Though, potentially.
They might be pursuing safety, but this position doesn't guarantee safe. That might be their pursuit, though. They might feel more protected here. But the reality is that if a person has to visit this position to feel protected, they're not feeling protected.
Okay.
Yeah? Now, compare this person that has this physiology and this person. It's a completely different dialogue. And that person's feeling a whole lot different. So now, let's take a person that has got a neutral position and somebody important to them has just passed away. They will drop the head. If they stay like this for a period of time, and that period of time can be measured in a couple of days or a couple of weeks, they would end up with a sore neck and a sore back because their head has gone forward, it's heavy, and it's a burden to the body. So the psychology of the death created the physiology in the body. And depending on how long you leave that there will determine as to what other parts of the body that affects. But know that it affects all of the body straight away, but whether it has ramifications that manifest in pathology or something you can feel will be subjective to how long it's there. Now, let's go the other way. A person hasn't had any kind of death or any kind of negative impact on their psychology or any type of stress. They don't even have stress in the workplace, but they're out playing a game of hurley, for instance. They get a clatter on the back of the head, and that throws the neck forward and gives them a little bit of whiplash. They don't get that addressed properly. You leave them in this position or some form of that position, and that can induce a chemical reaction in the body that can create symptoms of stress, depression, anxiety, and because of the structural implications of having bones in your head that should do a certain job, not doing the job. It has an effect on the endocrine system, which is the hormonal system, which then can create a depressive scenario. Maybe the easiest one to talk about is if a lady delivers a baby, the pelvis doesn't knit back together properly, you end up with a challenge to the sacroiliac, which is literally the end of the spine in the middle of the pelvis. If there's a challenge to that, there will be an orthopedic reference to a challenge in this zone here. So postnatal depression can be a direct, pretty much correlation to the sacrum, a pelvic level being locked, that will lead to a pelvic occipital lock at the other end. The occiput is the bone at the back of the head.
Okay.
So let me just put that into one sentence. Lock the pelvis up, lock the head up, postnatal depression will follow. Leave postnatal depression there long enough, it starts to become a behaviour, and then you can start to categorise it as a clinical depression. But you can unlock a pelvis fairly quickly, provided there's no major structural issues that are beyond just the delivery. But you bring the pelvis back into its dynamic form, these bones and the affiliated things, because there's a lot more going on than I'm just saying, and then the postnatal depression lifts. So there's an example of a physiology.
Yeah, I do think it's good in that instance there.